Hello everyone, it's Connie from FAFF Designs. Welcome to my YouTube channel. In the video you're about to watch, I am going to make over this piece, which I'm blocking out by sitting in front of it. There you go. You can see a little peek of it there. It's quite a small piece, but I had loads of fun with it, and I've gone for a really kind of industrial, grungy look with it, using, of course, my favourite colour, which is green. Enjoy! Okay, as always, we're going to start with the prep work. I'm going to fast forward it for you. In the bucket, I have Dixie Belle's White Lightning Cleaner mixed with warm water, and I'm just scrubbing the piece all over with a microfiber cloth to get off any grease and grime. Then I changed the water for clean warm water and rinsed that off all over. Once that was dry, I then got my Festool sander and gave the piece a scuff sand, and then wiped the surface dust off that with a damp microfiber cloth. So that was the prep work done in breakneck speed. The next thing I'm going to do is take Tree Frog Green and add a dash of Daisy, which is the yellow colour you can see there. There is no exact measurement here. I am just doing it by eye and then giving it a really good mix until I have this kind of really funky zingy green colour. So I am using a Dixie Belle premium chip brush to apply the mixture in quite a haphazard way. So you can see that I am sort of crisscrossing the motion of my paintbrush, and I'm also intentionally not giving complete coverage, so I'm leaving areas of wood unpainted at the very ends of the drawers and around the edges to kind of give a little bit of a distressed look to the piece. I've zoomed in on this part for you so you can kind of see what I mean, and you can see that I'm not quite going around the edges, and I'm using quite a light hand. I am kind of wanting a little bit of texture on this piece, but not as much texture as perhaps something that I've done previously with sea spray mixed in. I'm just relying on the natural bristle brush and the thick paint to give me that little bit of texture that I want. Same applies to the side of this piece, and I'm just showing you this example so you can see how I'm doing it on a larger surface. I'm using like crisscrossy motion again. That just means you're not going to get brush marks in any one particular direction, but it does mean that you're going to build up a little bit of texture and a little bit unevenness on that surface, which is exactly the kind of look that I want. And again on the top you can just see that I'm not quite taking the paint right to the edges. This gives a distressed look to the piece without actually having to sand or do any kind of distress work to it. So it's quite a good way if you don't want to sand a piece to get that distressed edge look. You can kind of just feather your paint right up to your corners and just leave a little bit of the wood showing to give that impression of being distressed. Okay, so I left that green colour to dry, and I'm going to layer another green colour over the top of this to kind of add to that distressed look. So I'm using the remaining Tree Frog Green in the tub, and I have added into that a little bit of collard greens. Again, there is no exact measurement. It's just something that I'm doing by eye until I get the right shade. and it's just going to give me a little bit of tonal variation to the piece. Again, I'm going to use a very similar technique to my application of paint as I did in the first coat. You'll notice that I'm using a slightly different brush. This is a French tip brush, but it is the same in the fact that it has a natural bristles. So it's going to give me some of that nice texture. And I'm just applying this quite haphazardly again. I'm not quite going up to the edges, and if you can see, there is some of the original green base layer still visible underneath the darker green colour. Again, switch you back to the top view so you can see the effect on a larger surface. I've switched back to the premium chip brush just because it's going to cover a little bit quicker than the French tip. And again, just crisscrossing the paint in that kind of motion. I don't want brush strokes, but I kind of want it to look a bit patchy. This is just kind of a way of making a piece look distressed without having to sand back those layers. And it gives you a very similar effect. So that colour was left to dry completely, and now I'm going to switch back to my original colour mix, which is the base colour, and it's that lighter shade that I mixed with Tree Frog Green and Daisy at the beginning of the video, and I'm going to layer this over the top of the darker green. So I'm sandwiching that darker green in between two layers of the lighter green, and it just gives the impression of multi-layers of paint. It adds a little bit of dimension rather than it just being one flat colour. And the idea is that that darker green is going to show through in some areas and kind of look a little bit distressed. Again, I'll just show you the difference of the technique on a larger area. So you can see that I am almost feathering the paint out towards the edges of the piece so that the coverage isn't as full around the corners, which gives the impression of it being distressed. The difference between a synthetic brush and a natural bristle brush is basically the application of paint. So a natural bristle brush lends itself much better to building up texture and decorative finishes, whereas a synthetic brush lends itself better to a much smoother application of the paint. Okay, so the green's completely dry, and I have sped this up somewhat because it was quite a slow process building up the black so that it was it was in a place where I was happy with it. So I am using the Belle brush, which is another Dixie Belle natural bristle brush. This is the bristles are a little bit more packed together on this, so you can get really good coverage as well as achieving lots of different kind of textured looks with it. So I am applying Caviar, which is a true black, over the top of the green, and I kind of want this to be pretty much a solid black at the bottom and fading up to the green towards the top. So I'm just kind of trying to blend that line in, and I'm going to introduce a black wax later on which will soften that line. The reason I'm doing this when the green paint is dry is because I don't actually want to blend the two colours together. I just kind of want to give a little bit more of a grungy impression with the black paint. So I don't want the green and black to blend together when they're wet. I just want to layer the black paint over the top of the green. Again, a really similar process on the sides of the piece. I just don't have to contend with all those tiny little drawers. It's just a flat surface, and I'm using a rag just off screen to remove the excess of paint, so that I'm using more of a dry brush technique to kind of soften the line between the green and the black. Okay, so when the black was dry, I went back in with the original green mix. I'm using a couple of different brushes just because you get slightly different effects with the different brushes that you use, if you can catch it there, because I have sped it up. So I have got the Bestang brush, which is again a natural bristle brush, but it does have a large surface area, which allows me to get that kind of smokiness. And I'm also using the premium chip brush, which is the brush that I started off using. And all I'm doing really is kind of just getting it into a place where I'm happy, where the black and the green meet each other. I don't want it to be a solid line. I kind of want it to look smoky without blending the two colours together. And I know I mentioned before that the look that I was going for was kind of distressed and that you didn't have to sand to get that look. But I did want to just kind of sand the very edges of this piece to expose that orange tone wood underneath. So all I'm doing is just running my electric sander really lightly all over the drawer fronts, just to basically catch the very edges so that you can see a bit of wood peeking through. Okay, I'm just going to add a little bit more grunginess to this piece. So you can see I have some Caviar on my premium chip brush, and I've also sprayed it a little bit with my continuous mister. Not too much that's dripping off, you just want to loosen the paint ever so slightly. And then I'm taking my index finger and I'm flicking the paint, the black paint, onto the piece. And this kind of just gives you a really interesting effect where it looks like the paint has been splattered on, or there's a bit of patina, and it just looks really cool with this particular piece. So I did do the paint splatting all over the piece. I just varied the amount that I put. I concentrated a little bit more of the paint splatting around the area where the black and green meet each other. And now I am going to seal the paintwork. So I'm using Best Dang Wax from Dixie Belle with the Best Dang brush. And this is just going to get in all of the little nooks and crannies of those drawers and just make it a lot easier to apply. I do sometimes use a sponge to apply wax. Generally speaking, I'll only use a sponge on a large flat surface. Because of the texture on this piece and because I've got 20 drawers, I'm using a brush for this particular one. So I only applied the Best Dang Wax in clear all the way over the green and down to where the black starts. I have now got Best Dang Wax in black, which I am applying over my black paint. This is just going to really intensify that black, and also means that sometimes when you use clear wax over darker colours, you can sometimes get a streak in. This is just going to stop that. Black wax over black paint works really, really well. And it's also going to allow me to kind of blend that line in between the green and the black a little bit more and just give a bit more of a smoky edge. I'm also going to take the black wax up to the entire top of the piece and just add to that kind of grungy look that I have created. So as you can see, I'm just using a bit of that black wax to kind of add a little bit more depth and definition around the drawers. And I'm applying it with a premium chip brush. Just, it gives you a really kind of a light feathered look as opposed to applying it too thickly. And when I have added the black wax on, I'm going to grab a blue sponge and just wipe the excess off. And because we've put that base of clear wax on first, it means you have more control over your black wax and it allows you to rub the excess off without any problems at all. Now to put the 20 card holder handles back on. They're not even handles, but the card holder inserts back on. Each one is held in place by 4 tacks. So I'm showing you one going back on. I'm not going to show you all 20 because that'd be really boring. I also added a piece of white card into each handle. It was a little bit fiddly, but got there in the end. This is just going to make that green colour really, really pop. Eagle-eyed viewers will have noticed the addition of those dinky hairpin legs. I will put the supplier in the comments for you. You can see the paint splats there, it just adds to that grunginess. And here's the final stage shot, complete with a quirky circus sign. Thanks for watching the video, hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any questions, drop those in the comments below and make sure you are subscribing to my YouTube channel.